Hello and welcome to a new video. In the previous two videos, I made this tower, its accompanying objects, and its respective base. And today, we're finally completing the entire build. I'm really happy with how this one turned out, and I'm excited to show you all the final details. So let's get into it and see how we feel about the finished result. I'm starting with the painting of the tower. For the first time ever, I have the option of airbrushing. I'd like to send my thanks to my wife for gifting me this airbrush. This is not a sponsored product, but I'll still leave its link in the description. How I feel about it is, it's a pretty good item to begin airbrushing without paying for a compressor unit. The rechargeable compressor is pretty good. It runs on 3 different pressure settings, and on the highest, it lasted about 15 minutes active use for me. Recharging took about an hour. I find it not to be the best option for fine details, but saves a lot of paint and time to apply base coats, primers and such. The airbrush itself, to be honest, is cheap, low quality, but I think I will eventually invest in a proper airbrush and use this kind of a compressor with it. I'm saying this kind because sometime during the shooting of this video I dropped the compressor and broke its button beyond repair. Though, considering its cheap price tag, I'll be buying one more. For this tower, I went back and forth between keeping its paint in a classical greyish stone color and to go for a sandy tone. I ended up choosing sandy tones this time. As usual, I painted different stone pieces with slightly different shades from the same color group. Can't say I'm in love with the sandy tones. I think in my mind a stone structure of a castle or keep is supposed to be colors from a grey palette. I tried to get grey tones involved by painting the cobblestone surface of the small tower and the rock base. For the doors and wooden beams, I chose a brown that is close to the red side of things, and applied similar reddish filters on the stone structure here and there. As for the roof, I stuck with reddish-brown tones. I didn't want to go fantastical with purple or similar colors. I applied 2 more coats of darker filters to blend everything together. For the smaller building next to the tower, I switched back to grey tones to make it feel like it was added later. Maybe an extension or an additional structure built after the tower. I used multiple greys along with some sand color mixed with light grey. And kept the roof and wooden parts in a similar style. Maybe I should have added a bit of a moss here and there to make it more interesting. Once I was happy with the paint job, I applied filters and washes to finish it off. As for the objects, I used Vallejo dark brown color as the base coat, applied it with the airbrush. If you missed the previous video where I made these, you can find the link to it in the description or in the cards above your screen. At the market stalls, I painted some items green as if they are watermelons or large vegetables. The sack-like objects I planned to be grains, so painted them accordingly. Similar round ones would be tomatoes or giant apples, I don't know, I painted them red. And the long stick-like ones would be baked breads or leek-like vegetables. After dry brushing, washes and filters, I painted a random pine tree to represent the faction's crest. I'm honestly tired of painting crosses on medieval shields, and I still lack the skill to paint a roaring lion or anything highly detailed, so a pine tree worked perfectly for me. Ever since October, I had been practicing on 3D modeling a bit. I managed to design and resin printed my own barrels and wooden crates. Hopefully it's the start of creative freedom and I'll be able to design other objects and figures in the future. I also found some free animals and printed them to use in this project. The links for these designs are in the description. Also, while searching for free-to-use figures, I found this merchant figure, as well as this knight and the archer. The knight's sword broke during the painting and I had to glue it at least once. It's also very high quality. I'm even thinking about printing a larger one to paint and display separately. Again, links are in the description. Also, found some cultist figures. I planned them to be the suspicious figures approaching the gate of the tower, only to be confronted by the guarding soldiers. And this female villager figure looked pretty interesting and printed one of it as well. For this diorama build, I plan to use 3 trees. No need to explain what I do here. You can find my tutorial video for how to make trees in the description or in the cards above. After finishing the trees, I shaped the final slope of the base. I dry fitted the tower to glue some rock faces at the bottom, making everything blend more naturally. However, because the sloping road left a noticeable gap, I decided to glue the tower down permanently so I could fix it, which made the rest of the work harder when I applied the dirt and grass later on. It's just hard to turn the base around to shake off the excess grass and such when there is a finished 35 cm high tower piece attached to it. With the air drying clay, I fixed the said slope gap and covered up the opposing corners. In the last video I said to cut off those bits, but after a brief look I decided to keep them as they are. It just looked weird in my mind. Next step was to paint the base in black, covering as much blue color of the styrofoam as possible, as well as to give the rock face a matching grey color tone with the base of the towers. Next, with the help of PVA glue, I applied the ground flock, which is used to bake coffee grounds. After it dried, I applied the grass, while trying to keep it to a minimum level. I just didn't want this to look like a picturesque meadow. Finally, applied hairspray over the grass and the dirt to make sure they won't scatter around. Once the base completely dried, I started adding bushes and rest of the greenery. For this, I used same flock mixture I used for the trees. If you're new to the channel or need to know how those are made, you can find my tutorial up on your screen or in the video description. After enough of these additions, I added 2 tree stumps I quickly made off the camera to the backside of the diorama. Next, I started adding the rest of the diorama elements, starting with the vendor stalls. Once moved on to adding the human elements, it started to get really enjoyable. Like how the woman just left the building looking out for something, and how a commoner is talking or bargaining with the already wealthy looking merchant. I added the sorcerer-looking figures in a way trying to explain something to the guards by the gate. Maybe trying to convince the guards of their good intentions even though they look suspicious. I couldn't fix the archers to look and aim downwards, so this will have to do. And two figures that originally had two-handed axes in their hands ended up with broken weapons after the print. I had to give them some wooden beams, logs and such as if they are carrying supplies. Finally, added the barrels and such, and moved on to adding the trees. Trees really give another level of detail and reality to dioramas. That's why I always leave them to the last. With the last tree on the base, I call it done. There is still a window for improvement and additions. Even though it would be so hard to see, I would have added a center figure on the top of the section. Maybe one or two more archers here. Would have printed and added more objects here. And guess what's missing here? By the time I was putting this together, I couldn't find the crane anywhere. My best guess is cats somehow got to it. A medieval scratch build crane is always a great toy for pesky furry cats. Anyway, I might have maybe added at least a civilian figure here along with some scatter objects. And a couple of more figures next to these might have looked better. But it is what it is at this point. Hope you learned something from this or got inspired. Thank you for being here and watching this final episode of this diorama build. I hope you liked it. If you did, give this video a like and let me know what you think about it in the comments. Until next time, take care and see you in the next one. Guess what? I finally found it wedged between the wall and the cabinet in the room. It's now finally complete.